I have long argued that there are two primary camps in our contemporary political landscape. Those who appreciate and criticize America on the basis of both her merits and her flaws, and those who hate America on the basis of lies and on the basis of being deceived and misled. I don't want to believe that a majority of people that are critical of America hate America, but I want to believe, and I think I do believe, that a lot of people who do despise America are in fact misled, and I think this is the case of Miss Jill Scott, who is a very talented singer. Some of you may not have heard of her, but she's a very talented singer, very popular R&B artist. And she recently released a bastardized version of the national anthem at the Essence Festival, which is some kind of music festival that celebrates black artists. And Essence put out a tweet saying this is the only national anthem we're going to play from now on. Now, when I first heard half of it, because I heard half of it, I was absolutely, completely and utterly disgusted. I was actually at a loss for words. I didn't know what to say. But my entire project with this channel is to cause us to think more deeply about the issues of our day in a manner that is constructive to our pursuit of human flourishing and a just society. And so I will respond to Miss Jill Scott's anthem here, and I will try to give a good faith critique of a lot of the things that she says, while noting this is a song, not an argument, but is a song that contains arguments. So without further ado, let us hear what Miss Jill Scott has to say on the 4th of July about the United States of America.
Say, can you see by the blood in the streets?
The blood in the street. I could say a lot about that, but let's hear what she's trying. Let's hear the qualifier. What is she trying to describe? Let's hear the qualifier first.
That this place doesn't smile on you, colored child.
Say, can you see by the blood on the streets that this place does not smile on you, O colored child? I would ask her, what blood are you referring to, Miss Jill Scott? Are you referring to the blood on the streets that completely and utterly surrounds the streets in black communities around America daily, that is inflicted upon other black people by other black people? Do you mean that? Do you mean the fact that, according to the FBI's Uniform Crime Report, black people are most likely to be killed in murder by other black people? Do you mean that kind of blood? That's some serious blood that we shouldn't have in our streets. Do you mean the fact that, on a cultural level, whenever a black person talks like me, whether it be tonality, whether it be ideologically, many of his own people in his community, so to speak — I reject those terms, by the way. I don't have a community, I'm an individual. But just for the sake of argument, many of his own people in his community will then call him an Uncle Tom. They'll mock his voice, they'll mock his appearance, everything that's happened to me, because I've happened to break out of their victim mindset. What blood are you talking about? No, he's lying. His skin is aged like leather. And then a lady here who looks old enough to be my mother said, the founding fathers wanted you picking cotton, boo. And no joke, you need to moisturize, because that's a, let's say, well-worn 22.
No, don't take it. You don't have to apply for it, motherfucker. Shut the fuck up. There you go. God, what is wrong? Dude, oh my God. Oh my God. Dude, I swear to God, conservatism ages you. Philosophy also ages you. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Oldest.
But I don't want his handout.
I was gonna leave it alone, but I got to. Ain't no motherfucking way this boy's 22. Okay, black ain't supposed to crack, but this motherfucker done split open. You can't tell me if I don't look in this man's wallet, I won't find an AARP card, okay? And I ain't even trying to throw shade, but he's giving me very much shady pines. You can't tell me this man ain't collecting Social Security. He is 55 at least.
I'm trying to understand exactly what she's trying to say. Do you mean the blood on the streets that happens every time a distorted media narrative paints a officer encounter with a black person, which, by the way, oftentimes turn out peaceful according to statistics, as indicative of racism in society, and then black folks go ahead and burn down their own communities, like Ferguson, Missouri, Baltimore, Maryland.
Are on fire. A lot of those businesses along that corridor are boarded up because of what happened the last time when we call it Ferguson 1 back in August, shortly after the shooting of Michael Brown.
You need to disperse immediately or you will be subject to arrest. Do it now.
The McDonald's, the window is broken into again. We saw a couple other stores broken into and looted.
Tear gas has been thrown, water bottles we witnessed being thrown at police.
What do you mean? Minneapolis, Minnesota? They completely destroy their own communities, destroy their own sacred black-owned businesses, and then complain about the lack of opportunities and the stereotypes that surround black Americans in this nation. What blood are you talking about? I don't think Jill Scott is actually talking about the blood that matters, the destruction that matters, the carnage that matters, which is tearing apart the ability for us to have racial unity in a colorblind society in this nation. The blood that is caused by a certain subset of African Americans, not everybody, but a certain subset that want to forsake personal responsibility and refuse to believe they are masters of their own destiny. The blood was not caused by America. What does that even mean? America as the abstract ideal? The abstract ideal does not cause blood. America, first and foremost, is a universal principle. It's a universal principle which puts emphasis on a few key things. Number one, it puts emphasis on the inherent moral goodness of free will. Your ability to pursue what you want to do in life within the confines of the principle of justice, which then enables you to live a morally responsible life. It puts emphasis on the individual's ability to choose his relationships, form them at his will, and use those to benefit his own skill set, which will in turn benefit society. It puts great emphasis on the public's ability to correct governmental authority when it runs athwart of its proper aims. It puts emphasis on the individual's ability to understand objective reality, natural law and natural rights, and the moral framework our republic rests upon, in an effort to also pursue virtue and pursue a richer and deeper understanding of what it means to have a good society, what it means to have justice, what it means to understand what truth is. That's actually what America is founded upon, is truth. So I'm trying to understand, what blood is she talking about that America doesn't smile on people for? What she might be talking about is racism. And no matter how you want to split it, racism is not the biggest issue facing black Americans today, number one. Number two, let's assume it was, as it once was in America, one of the biggest issues facing black Americans today. Even during those times, innovative black Americans found a way to succeed. They found a way to succeed by utilizing the principles of capitalism, which is oftentimes scorned by the current African American left. People like Cornel West and others in their little thought leadership like to scorn capitalism as being the cause of poverty, when in all reality, capitalism was the only gateway for many black entrepreneurs, including formerly freed slaves called the freedmen, to liberate themselves from their condition and build wealth and value amongst each other and pursue greatness and excellence. Capitalism was the enabling mechanism for that. America has never hated black people. Individuals have hated black people. But you always make a mistake when you confuse the universal principle with the local idiosyncrasies of temporal individuals who ultimately will pass away, as we all will. You make a egregious, what we call in philosophy, a category error. That's one big category error. Let's continue.
Whose blood built this land? With sweat and bare hands, but you'll die in this place, and your memory
This is another emotional. See, this is another emotional platitude. I'm doing my best to remain civil and respectful here, because this is what I want to model to other people. This is another emotional platitude. Whenever an African American dies, even if it's for an innocuous purpose that has nothing to do with racism, racism in our contemporary age is almost always blamed. Forget dies. Whenever an African American has something happen to them, people assume, as regards to, let's say, for example, the NASCAR driver who found a noose in his garage, and we actually found out that noose was actually planted by him. It wasn't actually a noose planted by white supremacists. Whether it be Jesse Smollett, who managed to capture the media landscape for a while, pretending as if he was a victim of a hate crime in Chicago, when in all reality it was perpetuated by two brothers that he knew in his acting days. I mean, I can keep going on. This isn't to say that racism doesn't exist, but this is to say that whenever even the most smallest thing happens to a black person, even not a well-known black person, society, the black intelligentsia, the media get up in arms. They complain about racism. They march, they protest, they scream, they screech. In some cases, they burn down entire cities. And what happens? Nothing changes. Nothing gets better. Nothing promotes growth. So the idea that black people who die are not remembered is just, even black people who die for the wrong reasons are still remembered by history. Emmett Till, for example, who should have never died, he's still remembered by history. So this idea that black people who die, it just is not factual. And this is, again, I'll get into this in a second, because people are going to say, well, of course it's not factual, Christian. Yeah, thank you, Captain Obvious. Yes, it's not factual. But this is a symptom of a deeper worldview that we must address. Let's keep going.
Oh, say, does this truth hold any weight?
Not really, it doesn't, because it's not the truth. It's a distorted perception of America, i.e. a category error in which you confuse the universal for the local on the basis of anecdotal incidences which don't reflect empirical reality, which convince you that this entire nation is evil. So this is not the truth whatsoever. It is your own biased reading of this of the news, your own biased understanding of black culture, and your own biased refusal to reckon with America for who she is, rather than what happens in her borders sometimes by some select people. So no, it bears no weight, because it's not truth. It's platitudes, it's passion, usurping your ability to actually understand the truth. You are blinded and clouded by your emotions. It's not truth.
This is not the land of the free, but the home of the slave.
You see people cheer when she says this is not the home of the free, but the land of the slave. Now again, we can easily point out the numerous successful black Americans and everything like that, and the numerously successful, well, not successful, but majority black cities in America. We can do that all day long. Let's not do that, because that would actually miss her point. This goes to a deeper understanding about what America is. And the presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy talks a lot about what it means to be an American. But what it means to be an American is only half the equation. What does America as an ideal actually stand for? And how does that ideal connect to reality? America as an ideal, as I mentioned previously in this video, stands for everything that I mentioned that it stands for. It stands for the idea of objective truth. It stands for the idea of having an objective moral framework discoverable by human beings through reason. It stands for the idea of having a cooperative society built on voluntary exchange, not built on coercion or force. It stands for the ideal of having a sound conception of what it means to have a good government. And beneath that sound conception is the principle of justice. Principle of justice, which simply means obeying your contracts and safeguarding what individuals already have in their possession, i.e. their rights, which enable them to live moral lives. America is an idea that constitutes every single bit of this. America is not an idea that prides the abstract common good over the individual. America is not an idea that prides an ethnicity or a race over a particular human being. America is almost the only nation founded on the idea that you as a human being are sufficient in your own right. By its very definition, America can be nothing but free. Now, if you talk about the country that the principle resides over, it's true, we have some significant problems. We have significant problems brought about by the perverse cooperation of the corporate media and the government and very powerful political interests that actually had nothing to do with the social justice nonsense Jill Scott's talking about, but everything to do with attempting to bifurcate society into two or more classes and then put certain narratives in the heads of people in that society and then make them fight with each other. It has everything to do with their attempt to instill their sort of globalist order upon the idea of America and the rest of the world. It has everything to do with the wild passions and imaginations of the powerful, many of whom are in Congress, many of whom are in business, many of whom are lobbyists, who wish to see their version of heaven manifest upon the earth. America has problems, believe you me, when you have a nation that can spy on people without a warrant, when that was essentially something that we revolted against the king for back in the revolution, we have a problem. But having said that, these problems are in spite of America's internal goodness. These problems are in spite of America's emphasis on objective reality and the freedom of the individual. These problems are in spite of America's emphasis on seeking the truth through using your human ability to reason. These problems are despite America's pro-human stance. These problems, in fact, are contrasted with America's pro-human stance, so much so that the idea of America actually provides a rallying call for us to go against these issues and to fight them and to win. Because you don't judge an idea by how abused it's been. You judge an idea by how it does when it is understood and used properly. Jill Scott, her condition's even worse than this. She's not even looking at the legitimate problems that America has and making honest critiques like I just did. She's actually looking at a subset of a few problems that are oftentimes aggrandized by the corporate press in an attempt to push an agenda and distort the perceptions of African Americans for some kind of political gain, and she has been consumed by it. If she genuinely believes America, the country where she made her millions, the country where she can stand on a stage, attack it as ferociously as she just did, and not be arrested, which, by the way, if she did that in North Korea or China or Russia, she would have been arrested for much less, actually, than just this. I mean, she would have been arrested and taken to a gulag somewhere. If she genuinely believes that America is such a horrible place, then her own experience should not be a living testament against that. Her own experience shouldn't be that. But beyond her own experience, the framework of the country should also not be a living testament against what she's saying. We need a revolution of the mind in this nation, people. Thomas Jefferson said, I would rather have a nation without government and with newspapers, as opposed to a nation without newspapers and government. And Jefferson was very critical of the partisan press, as I am today. It didn't go away, it just changed forms and faces. And they convince you that they're unbiased in all reality. They're the biggest peddlers of nonsense and lies as they accuse others of being. But he meant by that is that he wants to have a society that's enlightened. Because an enlightened society is a society which has the precondition for flourishing, has a precondition for understanding the virtues of human freedom and how to use those virtues in a way that is not only effective but is just. And therefore the society will be enhanced by this understanding. But when the newspapers are actually the biggest peddlers of unenlightenment, the biggest peddlers of ignorance. And they benefit by instilling ignorance and unenlightenment in the hearts and minds of people. We should now consider what it looks like to have a society without the established press, and more so a society where information comes organically and is dispersed through decentralized means. Because the narratives you see consuming Black Americans, many Black Americans, that keep them voting for Democrats, that keep them believing untrue things about America, that keep them believing untrue things about white people, I'll just say it, because I'm tired of being mealy-mouthed about this. Many of those narratives are shown and displayed in the media in such a way where it now just triggers an automatic response for them to either attribute something happening to racism or something happening to some kind of thing that is against them. We need a revolution of the mind where we get back to understanding philosophical principles and approaching ideas with the rigor they deserve, not approaching ideas through the lens of simplified nonsense like what we saw in that bastardized national anthem. Jill Scott should be very grateful for America. Jill Scott should be very grateful for the opportunities that she has been given living in the freest country in the world, even if we have problems. Jill Scott should be happy that she is the inheritor of a long intellectual tradition of Americans who thought very deeply about the human being and what he means to society. And I'll even say this about this idea that Black folks built America. Many people built America because America is not just this one grand organism that you can estimate and measure by one method or one manner. In fact, that kind of thinking is the same kind of thinking which has destroyed so many people's ability to critically appreciate ideas and has led them astray and has allowed charlatans to overtake their minds. America is a multifaceted, multidimensional, multi-level political experiment which happens on multiple levels and has different actors who contributed to its development at different times. It is impossible to say that any one group of people built America, when in all reality, it was a collaborative project in which at certain areas, at certain times, certain groups put in more, other groups put in less. The pre-colonial America, for example, New Dutch land in the area of New York City, had 16 or so different ethnicities there in the area that eventually became New York City. People who were from Brazil, people who were Jewish, people who were also even Native American. They all came together to trade, commerce, and build. All of this eventually translated into colonial America. In colonial America, different groups came from different parts of the world and helped build it. Yes, it's true that slaves were here, but you can't reduce the origin of America to slavery and be intellectually honest, because that's just against the historical record. The only way you can claim that your people built America is if you have a fundamentally collectivist idea of what it means to be a human person. If you sacrifice your humanity at the altar of your group. And if you do that, if the premise is false, as we say in logic, the conclusion is also necessarily false. The premise of Jill Scott's entire anthem here is false. And so I hereby say that conclusion is also false and it's wretched. And it does a great disservice, Jill Scott, to upcoming young Black women and Black boys who want to have a chance at succeeding in this country. Who, in my opinion, do have a chance. They hear something like this, and what do they think? It's a shame. Absolute shame. My friends, study philosophy. Think deeply. Don't react out of emotion. Stay calm, cool, collected. Appreciate America for what it is. If you want to support my project, like this video, comment on this video, share this video, subscribe to this channel. We need to get our message out there. I love you guys so much, and please stay pensive. Bye, guys.